glimpse of her bare, wet head bowed to the storm, her white profile, and her slim figure fighting over the sticky earth under her feet. It was this presence of her, and not the thought of escape, that excited him now. She was at his side. Her hand lay close in his. The lightning gave him glimpses of her. He felt the touch of her shoulder, her arm, her body as they drew close together. The life and warmth and thrill of her seemed to leap into his own veins through the hand he held. He had dreamed of her, and now suddenly she had become a part of him, and the glory of it rode overwhelmingly over all other emotions that were struggling in his brain, the glory of the thought that it was she who had come to him in the last moment, who had saved him, and who was now leading him to freedom through the crash of storm. At the crest of a low knoll between Barracks and Kedsty's bungalow she stopped for the first time. He had there again the almost irresistible impulse to reach out in the darkness and take her into his arms, crying out to her of his joy, of a happiness that had come to him greater even than the happiness of freedom. But he stood, holding her hand, his tongue speechless, and he was looking at her when the lightning revealed her again. In a rending flash it cut open the night so close that the hiss of it was like the passing of a giant rocket, and involuntarily she shrank against him, and her free hand caught his arm at the instant thunder crashed low over their heads. His own hand groped out, and in the blackness it touched for an instant her wet face and then her drenched hair. "Marette!" he cried. "Where are we going?" "Down there," came her voice. Her hand had left his arm, and he sensed that she was pointing, though he could not see. Ahead of them was a chaotic pit of gloom, a sea of blackness, and in the heart of that sea he saw a light. He knew that it was a lamp in one of Kedsty's windows, and that Marette was guiding herself by that light when she started down the slope with her hand still in his. That she had made no effort to withdraw it made him unconscious of the almost drowning discomfort of the fresh deluge of rain that beat their faces. One of her fingers had gripped itself convulsively about his thumb, like a child afraid of falling. And each time the thunder crashed, that soft hold on his thumb tightened, and Kent's soul acclaimed. They drew swiftly nearer to the light, for it was not far from the knoll to Kedsty's place. Kent's mind leaped ahead. A little west by north from the Inspector's bungalow was Kim's Bayou, and it was undoubtedly to the forest trail over which he had gone at least once before, on the night of the mysterious assault upon Mooie, that Marette was leading him. Questions began to rush upon him now, immediate, demanding questions. They were going to the river. They must be going to the river. It was the quickest and surest way of escape. Had Marette prepared for that? And was she going with him? He had no time to answer. Their feet struck the gravel path leading to the door of Kedsty's place, and straight up this path the girl turned, straight toward the light blazing in the window. Then, to his amazement, he heard in the sweep of storm her voice crying out in glad triumph, "We're home!" Home! His breath came in a sudden gulp. He was more than astounded. He was shocked. Was she mad, or playing an amazingly improper joke? She had freed him from a cell to lead him to the home of the Inspector of Police, the deadliest enemy the world now held for him. He stopped, and Marette Radisson tugged at his hand, pulling him after her, insisting that he follow. She was clutching his thumb as though she thought he might attempt to escape. "It is safe, M'sieu Jeems," she cried. "Don't be afraid." M'sieu Jeems! And the laughing note of mockery in her voice. He rallied himself and followed her up the 3 steps to the door. Her hand found the latch, the door opened, and swiftly they were inside. The lamp in the window was close to them, but for a space he could not see because of the water in his eyes. He blinked it out, drew a hand across his face, and looked at Marette. She stood 3 or 4 paces from him. Her face was very white, and she was panting as if hard run for breath, but her eyes were shining, and she was smiling at him. The water was running from her in streams. "You are wet," she said, "and I am afraid you will catch cold. Come with me." Again she was making fun of him, just as she had made fun of him at Cardigan's. She turned, and he ran upstairs behind her. At the top she waited for him, and as he came up, she reached out her hand, as if apologizing for having taken it from him when they entered the bungalow. He held it again as she led him down the hall to a door farthest from the stair. This she opened, and they entered. It was dark inside, and the girl withdrew her hand again, and Kent heard her moving across the room. In that darkness a new and thrilling emotion possessed him. The air he was breathing was not the air he had breathed in the hall. In it was the sweet scent of flowers, and of something else, the faint and intangible perfume of a woman's room. He waited, staring. His eyes were wide when a match leaped into flame in Marette's fingers. Then he stood in the glow of a lamp. He continued to stare in the stupidity of a shock to which he was not accustomed. Marette, as if to give him time to acquaint himself with his environment, was taking off her raincoat. Under it her slim little figure was dry, except where the water had run down from her uncovered head to her shoulders. He noticed that she wore a short skirt, and boots, adorably small boots of splendidly worked caribou. And then suddenly she came toward him with both hands reaching out to him. "Please shake hands and say you're glad," she said. "Don't look so frightened. This is my room, and you are safe here." He held her hands tight, staring into the wonderful violet eyes that were looking at him with the frank and unembarrassed directness of a child's. I don't understand," he struggled. "Marette, where is Kedsty?" "He should be returning very soon." "And he knows you are here, of course?" She nodded. "I have been here for a month." Kent's hands closed tightly about hers. I don't understand," he repeated. "Tonight Kedsty will know that it was you who rescued me, and you who shot Constable Willis. Good God, we must lose no time in getting away." "There is great reason why Kedsty dare not betray my presence in his house," she said quietly. "He would die first. And he will not suspect that I have brought you to my room, that an escaped murderer is hiding under the very roof of the Inspector of Police. They will search for you everywhere but here. Isn't it splendid? He planned it all, every move, even to the screaming in front of your cell." "You mean Kedsty?" She withdrew her hands and stepped back from him, and again he saw in her eyes a flash of the fire that had come into them when she leveled her gun at the 3 men in the prison alcove. "No, not Kedsty. He would hang you, and he would kill me if he dared. I mean that great, big, funny-looking friend of yours, M'sieu Fingers." End of chapter 13. Recording by Roger Moline.